Okay. Hello, hello, hello. Sabah, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. It is this is the Android Bay. Welcome back to the Android Bay, episode 121 on this beautiful June 11th, 2022. We are we are fully on in the middle of June. I mean, we're pretty much pretty much in the summer season here in Los Angeles. We're hitting 100 degrees Fahrenheit, roughly about 40 degrees Celsius for all of our friends across the border. Across the ponds, I guess. And of course, we're definitely in the middle of somewhat of a little bit of a lull, not necessarily a very big push into devices and, of course, hardware releases, but there's definitely things coming up, and it looks like a lot of things are starting to brew up. Specifically, HTC is putting out a calling to basically releasing a new device. There's a lot of talks about basically new devices coming out with the brand new 8 Plus Gen 1. And of course, Google finally dropped, well, not finally, but decided to also drop, not this one, sorry, too many devices on the table, the June feature drop for Pixel smartphones, and of course, packed with a lot of features. Earlier this week, I posted a video on the brand new the Realme GT Neo 3T. Kind of like a successor to the 3 that we saw before, although I feel like it stands on its own. We'll talk a little bit more about that one. And of course, last but not least, the thing that I've been waiting for since the announcement of the OnePlus 10 Pro in the US market, or actually even internationally, and that's the ability of getting more from that device. And essentially, the ability of having more on that device is the biggest thing going on. I see we have a few of our friends hanging out with us. Steve DeRoche, good morning, my friend. Hope you're doing well. Yes, it is 12:30. It's like a few hours ahead of us on the east coast of Canada. I see Hamid Hamid's in there, Farhan's in there, Finn Jacobs is in there, of course, and Jimmy Fire Dragon kicking it with us as well. It has been an interesting week in the sense of it's been busy with a lot of things coming up, a lot of announcements coming up. Apple had their announcement event as well for iOS 16 with a lot of new features. It's available in beta if you'd like to be able to check it out. Of course, Google dropped their feature drop for June, which also was nice to see some new features added to Pixels. Some of them are very much a direct connection to what you need. You're able to do with the device, like having your vaccination card present on the home screen. The ability of seeing your Nest camera on your home screen without having to unlock the phone is something that, especially for Nest users, it works really good. And of course, there's a new video editing or video creation tool in there. We'll get a chance to check that out as well. And then, of course, it's just overall, expanding the functionalities of all Pixel smartphones. For me, the really nice part about this, on top of the fact that I am a Team Pixel member, it's also because my son. This was like the first week we were able to. Well, he finally basically got his first smartphone. It's like officially first smartphone, like a legit smartphone. And definitely, he's joining Team Pixel with the Pixel 5a, with an amazing device with a very nice processor in there. And of course, he gets the same feature drop that I get. So it's also nice to be able to see him and see his impressions of some of those things coming up. Finn Jacobs, TK, I saw the post on Instagram a few days ago about Omar. Congrats on Omar again. Oh yeah, thank you very much, Finn. Yes. So for everybody, if you guys follow me on Instagram at TKDSL8655, same for Twitter. This week has also been a big week for us because my son finally graduated from his elementary school. So in the US, at least, we have 3 levels of school before you finish essentially high school, which is essentially what you need to finish by the age of 18. So we have elementary, junior high, and high school. Elementary is essentially through like age 12, 11 or so, or early 12 for most kids. And then, of course, after that, you go into the older kids classes where you have multiple the best way to describe it is elementary school, one teacher, and basically they sit together the whole day and they learn multiple material, multiple lessons, multiple disciplines, basically math, English, history, all of those things are all taught by one person. In junior high and high school, this is where they start going into more of the traditional system where kids move from one class to the other. And they basically have different instructors for different parts. So they have an English teacher, a history teacher, and they basically have 6 classes a day. And they continually go from one class to the other every hour to meet the teachers, and teachers don't go to your classes. I know back when I was in Lebanon, at least back in the olden days, It was a little bit different. We had the material, we had different instructors for different materials, but it was the teachers that moved from one class to the other, not the kids. And here, at least in the US, that's how we have it. So long story short, my son's going to be starting that hopefully in the next couple of months after the summer break. But it was a big part of what we did this week was just celebrating him. And I felt like the best thing to do obviously would be is to get him his first smartphone, and of course have him enjoy the entire summer. He got comfortable with it. I show him some tips and tricks in there, getting him into the ecosystem, and we'll probably start seeing some Team Pixel hashtags floating around his account. If you do want to check him out, he does have his own Instagram. He's been posting for some time. It's Omar Bay Pix, Pics, and Omar Bay. So he's been available for some time. Golan Lavi, good morning. Hello. Hope you're doing well. Ron Guido, Maryland, thank you very much. Barry Johnson, good morning. Welcome. And of course, everybody, hope you guys are having a good Saturday. I'm hoping you're not having any problems with some weird weather, at least what part of the world that you're in. But for us, I'll start jumping in first and foremost with the biggest thing that I felt like very excited about. Okay. So OnePlus finally made the announcement that they're going to be making an availability of there's going to be two variants of the OnePlus 10 Pro. We've seen the OnePlus 10 Pro in US and Canada in a one configuration. So that would be this one. This is an 128 configuration, sells for $899. And there's two colors. There's obviously the black one and the green one. We have, actually, I think I have both. Yes, I do have both. But again, my running joke up to this stage is I had to put two OnePlus 10 Pros to be able to get, higher capacity storage in there because the 128 is the limiting factor. And as we know, OnePlus devices do not have an SD card or don't support an SD card. So long story short, now we have the option of being able to, as of starting the 15th of this month. And if you guys would like to check them out, there'll be links in the description for that, but it's not going to be active till the 15th. And surprisingly not available at carriers, which is interesting, but it's going to be available at OnePlus, Amazon, and Best Buy. So their online or e-retailers will start supporting the higher capacity, and maybe in the future we'll be able to see that. Now, the unlocked models will support the Sub-6 technology. They will support AT&T and T-Mobile. It's just not sold at their stores. So just be aware of that. But I'm excited to see that we finally have that option. I think my biggest thing with the OnePlus 10 Pro right now is not that it's not a worthy device to be considered as a smartphone. Is just as time goes on, and I'll say this maybe depends on the where you are in the life cycle of, or where you are in your own needs as part of life. If you were starting off with a smartphone, you've never had a smartphone before, like my son, I don't think 128 gigs is going to be outlandish. I think it's more than enough, and I think it's a very capable, very good option for somebody to be able to basically use it. And I think Omar is going to have a blast. I have his camera set to 4K 30 frames per second on the main camera on the back, and of course 1080p on the front, because that's what we do on Pixels. But the overall experience, I think he has more than enough storage to kind of like fully utilize and enjoy it, installing his games and so on. But for me, as I'm going on from one device to the other, I feel like I've kind of surpassed the 128 mark. And I think this has been my biggest thing right now. I feel like storage capacities and storage is something that it needs to evolve again or yet again. I remember back in the day when, let's say, 64 gigabytes used to be something that was like, oh my God, that's enough, way more than enough. But back then we didn't have 4K 60, we didn't have, 4K 120 or even 8K video. So these capabilities obviously require more storage, and we're slowly getting in there. One thing I was very impressed to see is that the Axon 40 Ultra, from ZTE, right out of the box comes out with a 256 gigs of internal storage. Also, what we saw earlier with Motorola with the Edge Plus 2020 or 2022. They also came out with higher storage at 512 at $899. So we're seeing companies putting in or able to squeeze in higher capacity storage, and not necessarily too worried about RAM. This is the weird part of where Android kind of, depending on how much you have. 8 gigs was more than enough on what we have with Oxygen OS. I feel like 256 gigs of internal storage would have been the right start, maybe an 8256 as opposed to an 8128. But I still say, it's very possible that a lot of people would be very happy with the 128 device to date, although we're starting to see that creeping up into the whole point where 128 may not just be enough. So for me, the 256, I'm going to try to see if I can get my hands on one of them, because that would be my device, and I want to be able to switch to that. Not that I haven't been able to use the OnePlus 10 Pro. It's been a limiting factor, is what I was doing. When I was testing the device, I actually hit the limit. And I did the same thing with my Pixel 6 Pro. It's something that I don't want to, I'll say this. On a typical week, when I'm going from one device to another, when I'm doing different, content creation, preparing for videos and so on, I do end up making a lot of video with my smartphone. The last thing I want to do is in the middle of my videos, in the middle of my shoot, or in the middle of what I'm doing, having to worry that my device is going to run out of storage. And I typically don't want to have to manage that during the week because I have so many other things going on. Having to stop what I'm doing to go back and unload or basically take data off my phone so I can have the storage that I need and then go back to what I was doing, that's valuable time. So the long story is, or the short story, incredibly long, is essentially that I need a higher capacity device. And I feel like, what we're starting to see now is what we knew was going to happen. It did take a little bit of time. So we've seen the 12256 in China before. Now it's available, and it's going to be definitely an appreciated storage capacity for people that want to have more storage on their devices. Um, Thank you. Thank you very much, Marilyn. Says a wonderful Omar. Yes, middle school is going to be definitely a big change for him, but he's very excited. We did a tour of his junior high. I want to say maybe a month and a half ago with him. So it was definitely a very different campus, much more buildings, more activities, and he's looking also to kind of continue and maybe meeting new friends, and of course continue all the good things and learning new things at school. Let me double check here. Sabajo, Chemitar, Sabajo. Buenos días, canal. ¿Cómo estás? We're missing Greg. Yeah, Finn, actually, you're right. Greg is not in the chat. Hopefully, Greg will be joining us soon. I hope he's doing well. I know it's been, I want to say I've seen him online a few times this week, and I think he's doing okay. 120 is fine if you have a. So actually, Marilyn, I think that you have an absolute perfect point there. The availability or the use of a micro SD card is a big factor into what is acceptable on a storage on a device. Like, with the devices I mentioned to you earlier when I said they had 64 gigs of internal storage, those supported SD cards. Right? I mean, with the exception of Pixels back in the day and OnePlus devices, for the most part, all of them supported SD cards. And I think that's the biggest factor there. The ability of unloading that data is much easier done on device than it is to connect it to a PC, booting it up, transferring, uploading it to the cloud, and depending on what you have on store, data and so on. So 128 is I think we're starting to reach that creep level of saying, okay, 128 should be basically starting to kind of phase out slowly, without necessarily packing out the cost, because at the end of the day, what we're also realizing is if Motorola is able to pack in a 512 gig internal storage on an $899 device, Axon or the ZTE Axon 40 Ultra is able to pack in 256 at $799. We kind of have to start looking at what is really being done here and how much profit margins are we looking at realistically. Last but not least, if we want to keep in mind, I do understand that obviously the first comment is going to come back and say, well, the price went up with it, but also keep in mind, the Xperia 1 Mark IV is now 512 gigs of internal storage, and still have an SD card. So Sony's really focusing on that part. Now, again, that may not be for everybody. That device is definitely priced for a specific market, for a specific fan base. But I'm talking about in general, the Moto Edge Plus 2022, I think, is a very good example of what Motorola is trying to bring to the table and what we need to have as to start basically making that the standard. But having expandable storage, I don't really see the reason why we're killing that option. It's an internal piece of component. Not everybody has to use it, but it does give you the ability of offloading the static media that you have on another type of storage that doesn't necessarily have to be as fast all the time. It's if you access it once in a while, it doesn't need to be the super lightning UFS 3.1 that we always have. But I'm excited to see what they're offering. I'm wondering how the approach is going to be. All of the reviews, all of the comments, and everything that's been put out so far to date have been made on a version of this device that had less storage. So as if there have ever been videos that have been posted there, unless people go up there and start re-uploading and making updated videos and updated reviews talking about the fact that it has additional storage as a new feature to it, it's going to end up basically color the commentary. And I don't know if that's necessarily what OnePlus wanted to do this year, essentially is make it so that the commentary is made on a lower version of what they're supposed to be making available later on. So I'm hoping we'll start having more conversations with that. So I for one, would love to be able to be part of that. My Galaxy, so here, Farhan saying, my Galaxy Note 8 is a 64 gigabytes, but still has a 6.5 gigabyte internal storage left. And yeah, see, one thing I would probably say is that Galaxy Note 8 has an SD card. That's one of the biggest factors. But if you're constantly I would say, removing some content off of it, it also depends on what you're doing with the device. What I mean by this is the Note 8 capabilities, or at least file sizes when it came to video as well as images, is not the same as, let's say, an S22 Ultra, where I would probably say I'm able to shoot videos in, again, 4K 60 or even 8K, but 4K 60 is what I shoot. whenever I sample my content, whenever I want to shoot a piece of tech, or whatever I'm editing, even if I'm producing a final 1080p, either a reel, a Snapchat, not Snapchat, but a reel or a TikTok, or even putting in a short, I'm shooting at 4K 60 and then exporting at that level, so I have a higher resolution content. Those are the things we want to keep in mind. And I know that the Note 8, I think, if anything, if it does 4K, it does probably 4K 30. But what I'm trying to shoot for, at least, to say is that device at the time it's released and what it's capable of doing. 64 with an SD card works perfectly for you. In 2022, when devices are being released, again, the Realme GT the GT Neo 3T supports 4K 60 frames per second, and that's going to eat up the storage if I don't have expandable storage. And OnePlus should obviously, I feel like OnePlus gives us even more functionalities with that 4K 120 and the 8K recording, and we need to have that storage capacity. So I think that's mostly my biggest thing. I'm not saying that a device can't work, just you have to also kind of remember when was it released, what are the capabilities, and what options you have on that device that maybe we don't have anymore. Has anyone else gotten a monthly update on their S22, S21? No, I'll say this. I don't have an S21 anymore, so I'm not sure. But I will say that it's been about a week or so that I haven't received an update on my S22 Ultra, because May was like update month for Samsung. I got literally 4 updates in 1 month to this device, and so far nothing. So I haven't seen the June update yet. But I will say that I have a T-Mobile variant, so typically I'm a little bit behind on updates. I'm not. We're not ahead of the curve. We're always behind it. Um, at least Guinea. No, we'll have to see how we get that one, Chemi. I'm hoping we'll see how that comes out. Farhan Mike on. Oh, here. Um, I've side granted. I've side graded from the V60 to a Galaxy Note 22, and I had to go with the 256. I also filled both my 128 internal and 128 SD cards on the V60, and I think this is again, it depends on what you do and what you need. Content for me is a big part of what I do, and essentially a device that I use on a daily needs to be able to, I guess, let's just say this. It needs to be able to hang with me in the standard form where I'm doing just normal day to day, taking pictures of the family. We're going out, we're enjoying kind of our activity, but I also needed to be able to hang in there when I flip the switch and I'm starting to do content on anything else. Because surprisingly, like when you're shooting with the device, when you're testing a phone, there's a lot of things you can do from the phone, but there are also a lot of clips that you need to do of the actual device itself. So you kind of also need to remember, it's not like this entire video was shot with the phone. It was shot with another piece of tech. And at the end of the day, do I want to take with me an entire DSLR or the ZVE10 or even the A6400? Or do I want to be able to basically shoot with what I have? I'm still in the process of trying to find I was trying to be able to get my hands on basically an X70 Pro Plus. I don't think the X80 is going to be something I'm going to jump on yet. I think the X70 Pro Plus, based on what I've used and what I've seen from it at CES, I want to get that to be my second, content creation. I don't need it for the phone. I literally want to buy it for a camera. So in my mind, the way I look at it, I'm looking at it as a device that's basically a camera that's going to live as that, and I'm going to be able to create from it, produce from it, and then of course use it as my secondary, my B-roll camera of so on of sorts when I don't need to be at my desk with my setup that I have right here in the studio. So I'm there, and I think the capabilities of what OnePlus are doing right now is they're finally giving us the option. We knew it was coming, but I'm just appreciating what we have. There was another thing I wanted to talk about today, but I was kind of on the fence. I kind of brought it up with Juan on Thursday on the best of our week, and I feel like at some point or another we're going to hit. There's going to be a massive shift in the way we are right now. Currently, right now, if you start noticing on everything, like when you start looking at devices and devices being released in all genres and all categories, fast charging is becoming available and more accessible to more affordable devices. And this is definitely a big thing for us, a big factor in what we see when we talk about smartphones. The problem that we have in here is, or it's not necessarily a problem, but the concern that I have right now is this. More and more companies are removing chargers out of the box. More and more companies are still touting faster charging and faster capabilities of their charging technologies as time goes on. But at some point or another, and it hasn't happened yet, but we're starting to see it, we're going to get to the point where a company will announce a device And I'm not naming a specific company. I'm talking just companies in general, right? So far, or up to this point, we've seen Pixels, we've seen Sony, we've seen Samsung, and we've seen Apple remove their chargers out of the box, out of their premium or their flagship-based devices. And I think Apple just removed it out of everything, and not necessarily saying Pixel doesn't, but I think Pixel did that as well. But Samsung still puts chargers in their A series, although I take that back. The A53 does not have that. Some devices still have it. What I'm trying to shoot for is this. These companies right now don't feature very fast charging. And what I mean by this, 30 watt on the Sony, 25 watt on Samsung, and again, if you want to go to 45, not so true 45 there. But for the most part, we're talking about sub 30 watt charging, something that you could probably use a charger from another device. There has been rumors that Realme is going to start removing their chargers out of the box. I haven't been able to substantiate that, but the rumors started coming out that basically Chinese brands are going to start removing that. But these brands are basically starting, literally like a good part of their presentations are, we're going to give you 240, 150 watt chargers. We're going to do a whole bunch of different things for you. But at some point, they're going to start not having that in the box. It means when you buy the phone and you're buying it based on those claims and configurations that they can do with them, and you don't have that 150 correct proprietary charger from the company, it's going to become a big problem, because you not only need to basically make sure you buy the right charger to be able to get that experience, but also, like, if you want to go wireless, you need to kind of get that special charger. Honor put out a device that is an absolute a lot of fun to use, and a lot of things are really nice in it. The charger in the box still includes 100 watt charging, absolutely out of the box, no question. It's out of this world, I mean. But to be able to enjoy that 100 watt charging on the wireless side, which is also a feature of this device, you need to not only buy a charger, which is separate, that's also an Honor charger, but also buy an adapter, a charging adapter that can support 100 watts powered into that. So those are two things that you need to kind of keep in mind when you're buying things. And we are going to get to that point. That's what I'm trying to say. We're going to get to that point where we start seeing features and announcements of charging technologies and new battery technologies, but we won't have the charger because we have to pay extra to be able to pick it up. And I don't know how we're going to be able to handle that. EU forces Apple to be able to use USB-C. I think it's a great move. My hope is that it becomes a across the border 2024, the iPhone. So this year we'll have the 14. And then next year we'll have the 15. So basically in 2024 will be the 16. So iPhone 16 should have USB-C. If Apple decides not to wait till that long and just jumps the gun with next year. And I think that would be the smart thing for us to do, or for them to do, of course. I see Aditya is joining us as well. Dan, hey, hope you're doing well. Grounded Tech. Dan's kicking it with us as well. He does a lot of good live streams. He was on yesterday playing some Fortnite on YouTube. He was streaming, so if you guys haven't had a chance to check him out. But he's also on Twitch as well. And one of the other creators I really love is Roger from RogerBot, basically Life of Tech, which is also very nice. They're also a big streamer on on Twitch and everybody else. But I do see Aditya. Thank you for hanging out with us. Joe Hickey from Purposely Pixel, also another friend, kicking it with us here. It had been described as, oh man, whole bunch of people. Once again, please explain what OnePlus planners. Okay, hold on. So Golan's asking a question. Please explain what OnePlus plans to do for the global market with premium flagship, not just the US. The announcement that they made is specific to the US and to the Canadian market. So those are the two markets that they announced. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're not going to be releasing the higher capacity to more of an international market. I think this is just the start. Initially, if you remember, actually literally on the 10th of January, early on in the year, they announced, this is while I was at CES, so they announced the OnePlus 10 Pro. In China, they had not only different variants as far as storage, but they also had different colors. There is a white OnePlus 10 Pro that exists in the market, but only in the Chinese market. If you want to import it and flash, global ROM on it, it'll work perfectly fine. But long story short, they're doing a staggered release. This is very much for the lack of a better term, this is very much an Oppo style release of what we've seen typically Oppo do across the border. Oppo doesn't release their devices across the country, across the globe entirely at the same time. First, releases it in China, typically to what we do. Then they start releasing it to the global market. And when they do essentially global, even though it's a global variant, it'll be available in specific markets initially and then slowly rolling out to more. So the long story short, what I'm trying to say, Golan, is you're going to see this device come up in more of a European markets and so on. And I think it's just more of a staggered situation. So the announcement for us is this. There'll be another announcement hopefully in the near future from those respective PR representation for OnePlus in those areas. For mine, I got it directly from the USPR, so obviously they're not going to give me global information. But again, it's not hard to see the path of what OnePlus and what Oppo do. And I've been following both Oppo and OnePlus and Realme for years now, and I can definitely tell you that yes, there's a staggered release of how devices are put out to the market. Perfect example would be the Find X5 Pro. The Find X5 Pro was available in the European market way before the Middle East, and I know that because I push out my content on the Find X5 Pro on the Arabic channel and on the English channel. The Arabic video didn't pick up as fast, but I was one of the very few creators putting a video in Arabic because that device was just not available for that market yet. So in the Middle East, people weren't looking for it. As we got closer to MWC and that time kind of went on, and I already had my Find X5 Pro and I'm putting out content the week before MWC, they started to see that device, and that's when it starts rolling out. So again, it's more of a timing, and not necessarily that it's not coming. It's literally more of a staged rollout. That's the best way to say it. Aditya, grounded tag. Yeah. Let me see. I think I'm missing some comment. Oh, dang it. Okay, I just jumped like 6,000 comment. That white OnePlus is so nice, Barry. Yes, no. So a buddy of mine in the Middle East in Kuwait, Slorks, if you guys know him, Ahmed Baraki, he has the white one. And he's had it for a while. He imported that one. So like during that time where we start seeing creators buying the Chinese version of the OnePlus 10 Pro in like February before OnePlus announced it, and they're all like reviewing that variant of it. He purchased the white one, and I think that was the right thing to do because that variant has not even come out. The US market, at least US and Canada, when it comes down to the 12256, it's only going to be available in the volcanic black color, so the darker black color, not even this one. So the green one is not getting a 256 12 variant yet. That's going to hopefully come up later on. But right now, yeah, it's a single color, single availability, US, Canada, 12 gigs of RAM, 256, which is typically what their higher model have always been. It's always been an 8128 and 12 256. I think to start off the year with the 899, I understand why they went there. It sounds better when you say that the OnePlus 10 Pro launched for $899 because there is no other variant, and that's a good tagline. And I think that's a lot of people will love that tag. I think now we'll have the additional storage as people start kind of looking in and wanting more, and maybe the people that bought the 8128 may upgrade. So we may start seeing some good sales or resales of the 8128s on Swappa and eBay and so on, and you may be able to pick up a OnePlus 10 Pro for a really good deal. So this is definitely something I'm really excited to see how that kind of goes. Aditya is jumping in with, I recently cleared out my 30 gigabytes of raw files from my phone 6 months after owning it. You could say the Sony has made me want to take more photos. It's something that if you enjoy doing and you want to be able to create and you have the time to be able, like when you do raw, this is the biggest thing. Obviously, this is a more of a commitment into taking photography to the next level because raw requires you to actually edit those content or those pictures on a PC. So you always in the shot as you're taking the picture and when you're looking at them. Now, I don't know if you're saving them as RAW and JPEG at the same time, Aditya, to be able to see how they look like processed and non-processed. But essentially, you are putting a little bit more work into that. But again, 30 gigs of pictures is actually a decent amount of pictures. But it's factor that in with 4K 60, 4K 120, or depending if the Sony has that capability. Yeah, an SD card becomes a very functional and a very nice tool to have. And seriously, Sony's the only game in the market right now for any kind of flagship experience that still talk about SD card support, even though they went to 512, which is what the Pro I has, and now the Xperia 1 Mark II, Xperia 1 Mark IV has. Now we don't have a 5 Mark IV. We didn't hear anything about that one, but I can definitely appreciate the move towards this, the next evolutionary move in storage capacity. But definitely, Aditya, of course, it's one thing we always need to do. We need to make sure to manage our content. Matt, Matt, the purposely gaming himself, dude, is in there, is kicking it. I can't stop, mate. But have a good one. Absolutely, man. Hope you're doing well. Hope you have a good time with the family. And of course, Jimmy Fire Dragon's like 30 gigs of raw files, Aditya. What are you shooting? A lot of beautiful things, I'm sure. A lot of things that obviously inspire Aditya. Finn is coming in with, I really want to upgrade to 12, but okay, so I think we're talking about the 12 gigs of RAM. But a lot of themes and mods I use, Android 12. So I'm talking about are stuck to Android 11 and are not yet updated to Android 12 yet. So I don't know what to do. I don't want to update to Android 12 and then revert back because I have to. It is a challenge. You're right. Mods, it depends on basically the support and basically the development that they've been doing. Android 11 to 12 is somewhat of a substantial jump. It's not an easy jump, and I think that's probably why you're not seeing a lot of mods or a lot of, I guess, things that worked quite well on Android 11 being transferred over yet. I think with the release of Android 13 in another couple of months or so, maybe we'll start seeing some interesting updates in there that'll force some people to update, as the mods will start basically realizing their base is starting to lose. I was going to say lose momentum if people stop using their mods, and they'll see that basically on their analytics, so to be able to see that. But my recommendation would be, honestly, Finn, is just comment in there in the forums wherever you are, and make sure that people are aware so that the mods can see there is a demand for newer versions and support, especially since Android 13 is knocking around the door. But again, Android 11 with security updates on it, there's not much really I would say it's a bad thing. As long as you're comfortable with what you have and you have the phone exactly as you want it, there's no reason why you can't. My only other thing I would probably say is, have you thought about maybe custom ROMs, maybe something that'll help you maybe have those incorporated, those features that you're using incorporated, and then you can continue on to Android 12, something maybe with Lineage OS or something to that effect. Or maybe something, let us know what you're running as far as the OS. You say Android 11, but what version, or is it a ROM or a specific version of that? Hey, Greg's in the chat. Good morning, Greg. Welcome back. A lot of uh Jimmy changing breaks. Oh, okay. No, everybody was asking about you, man, and hope you're doing well. I do have, oh, here. So DTS coming back. I do have it saved to JPEGs and RAW. Absolutely. I think that's the right combo. I use Snapseed to edit. That's actually even better. Edit the raw photos on my phone. Seldomly do I have to take them off to edit them on my laptop. I think that's the perfect way. If you're comfortable doing it, absolutely. But I think typically most people that shoot raw, I think it's more intended. I think, like, I would say is they're trying to do a little bit. Actually, I take that back. It depends on what you need. Really, realistically, it really depends on what you want. If you're comfortable using or with the output that you get out of Snapseed, I think that's perfectly fine. For me, if I'm going to do raw, I typically do it straight into Photoshop because that I feel like a little bit more control. But I also have a few extra plugins, and I feel like Snapseed is a good tool on the go. So as long as it works, man, it works perfectly there for you there. They have merged the R&D department. Yes, so absolutely, OnePlus and Oppo are, for the lack of a better term, a lot more in they're way more in business together now than we've seen in the past. And it's present in the operating system, it's present in their release cycles. This year has been a proof of the approach of what Oppo's bringing into the table and what OnePlus is bringing in. We saw some features trying to transfer over to Oppo from OnePlus, and then we saw others coming in the other way. So I feel like this is they're not going to merge their OS. I did specifically point that out, and the unified OS conversation is no longer on the table. The Oxygen OS and of course Color OS are not going to be merging. So they're still going to keep their own unique identities. An example would be Oppo doesn't shoot 8K, but OnePlus does. Oppo doesn't shoot at 4K 120. OnePlus still does that. The slider functionality that we have in there on the side of OnePlus devices, this nice little option here, also will stay there on OnePlus devices. Nord doesn't, but for the most part, OnePlus will carry that. Barry Johnson. Oh, here. Oh, okay. I see. I'm currently using Oxygen OS 11 on my 7 Pro. I'm rooted, obviously. And I like to use the AMOLED dark mode theme, which is the Swift installer, but it's not compatible with Android 12 yet. Okay. I see what I think. I see what you say. Okay. There are the mods to be able to download and do with maybe a darker theme on Android 12. Yeah, it's something that you have to keep in mind, and just the best way to say it is, yeah, if you're comfortable with it and it works. The OnePlus 7 Pro, my brother's been using that for some time, and I know Android 12 was released to it. He did have some problems initially when it was first installed, and we had to do a little bit of resetting on a few things for him. But it's I would probably stay with what you're comfortable with. But I would definitely maybe check into Lineage OS and see some of the features that you have in there. It does require, obviously, to unlock the bootloader. It's not just you probably already have an unlocked bootloader if you're rooted, unless you're using Magisk. So depending on that approach. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's going to be options available specifically when it comes down to theming, but not necessarily if Swift is going to be supporting up to Android 12 yet. So I think I understand what you mean. It was one of my biggest things in the past when I used to have to wait on my updating from one version to another. It was always because of supported mods, and especially at least at the time, Exposed didn't update as fast as people would want them to. So even though they would do running betas and early testing with Exposed on like early versions of Android, when the full version of Android comes out, they usually, or Google patches up a whole bunch of vulnerability. Well, in their mind is a vulnerability. It's an opportunity for exposed modules, of course, and it gets a little bit harder. But I remember that update cycle is very slow by comparison to what most things are updated. But for sure. Michael Peppertech, 30 gigs of RAW. Can be had quickly. I remember making 360 panorama HDR manually using raw images from a Nikon D5000. The total size was about 30 gigabytes, and images are basically, and then you layer the images. It is absolutely, that's what I'm saying. When you give us massive camera sensors, when you give us great camera capabilities, you have to marry that with the right storage, because otherwise you're going to really kind of make the relationship with that customer, especially new customers, um, get hit a sour note, because they're going to hit that limit of the storage on the capacity they have on the phone. And then they're like, well, I have to offload my data off either on a PC or somewhere else, or even start talking about cloud-based. But again, 30 gigabytes, I mean, if you're hitting it that quickly, obviously you probably need to start figuring out a mechanism there. I do still take content off my phone, but this year with the S22 Ultra, I went with the 512. I knew that the 256 was going to be, it may end up being an issue for me in about 6 months or so, and I wanted to move on to the next level. And it wasn't actually that bad. I think Samsung did a decent job in the pre-sale promotion pricing configuration. I mean, I still overpaid for my phone. There's no question there. But at the end of the day, I think it's something that I needed to be comfortable with. But again, the Pro I has that. Now, Xperia 1 Mark III does not. It's still 256, but I have an SD card. The Xperia Pro I has 512. All of the Pro series always recommend. They know you need that much storage. I realize that much there. Oh, and especially if you do carry with you your high quality music. Yeah, these are hi-fi and Amazon HD. What happened to Amazon Music Unlimited? My understanding, Amazon still has their music. It's $7.99 a month. It's unlimited, but it's not. Or I think you're talking about the Amazon Prime Unlimited. And I think that one doesn't include the entire library. You have to pay for it. So the included subscription with Amazon Prime is, I think it's decent, but it doesn't give you HD. It doesn't give you the high quality, like the 48 or 42 kilobits, 16-bit or 24-bit content. So I think the best thing to probably be is, if you want to get that higher quality, you get Deezer, you get what's it called, Tidal in there. Of course, we have Cobalt and Cobalt. Sorry, not Cobalt. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think as you said, hopefully at some point Spotify will join the game. But yeah, and of course Apple lossless, if you just jump on there for iPhones. Um, I've tried custom based ROMs like AOSP on Android 12, and I didn't like the Material U theming that we have in there. Yeah, if it's based out of AOSP, I'm wondering why they brought in Material U over. They could have gone in a different direction. I mean, we know that because Android 12 exists on many devices and it's been themed. The Material U functions have been themed out of it. Samsung, OnePlus, Oppo, Realme, all of them you run Android 12, but they've taken out any Material U presence in there, and have tried to be still closer to AOSP than it is to Material U. Oh man, yeah, Android. So Color OS, yeah. I mean, I think we can say that, yeah, even the same for many devices, right, Greg? It is a little bit harder. You do get used to it. I personally don't have much problems with my Find X5 Pro. I get all of my notifications, and on my OnePlus 10 Pro, still, yeah, a little bit delayed every once in a while. But the reality is this: um, if if I'm on the phone and I'm using it, typically there's no delay. If I'm not on the phone, I'll get the notification a little bit later, but it doesn't really, I never feel like I'm missing out. If something is super important and I need to get something and somebody needs to get in touch with me, especially with family, they typically call. It's not going to be something where I miss out on that. But I understand, you're right. Emails and notifications are a big factor of what we get in there. My brother, but oh, Finn, by saying my brother loves the Pixel Experience 12 ROM on his OnePlus 6. That's actually not a not idea. Greg has actually usually typically flashes Color OS on his OnePlus devices. to be able to just kind of test out and see some of the features they get there. So there is other options, but I don't think we have the color OS ROMs for the OnePlus 6 yet. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Greg, you did that the latest device that you did on, I think, was OnePlus 8. I could be wrong. Da, da, da. Michael Peppertech, Farhan, I have 12 images per layer per exposure of a bracket, so 36 layers. Then I think it was about 360 images total of adjustment, and the sidecar metadata adds up. Wow, I that's the yeah. It definitely racks up there. Right? That's way more than I've been doing before. And of course, Greg used it on Xfinity Mobile. So okay. As typical, what we've seen, like I said, OnePlus, I'm happy that they're doing more storage. I think the concern that at some point where the charging brick is not going to be included in the box, I think that conversation may be had in 2022 and maybe 23, maybe late 22, but early 23. I'm concerned into how we're going to be able to handle that, because when Apple removed their chargers, one thing they didn't do is, or one thing they didn't realize, or when the claims that they said is people can use their older chargers. Yes, absolutely. But you're announcing faster charging, but you're allowing people to basically go out and use their older chargers that couldn't perform there. And then if they did want to have a faster charging, they had to pay for it. Samsung, of course, copies that page directly from the book of Apple, and kind of gives us the same thing. 25 watt is the standard charging. It can do 45, but you have to buy the charger now, the 25 and the 45. But if you came from a Samsung device from previous years, you more than likely had the 25 watt chargers, which probably meant you're okay. But if you're coming from another ecosystem, this is where the proprietary thing kind of kicks me. Is if I come from a device that supports, let's say, PD delivery, or even if we're talking about proprietary, right? Huawei, Honor, even when we talk about Oppo and Realme. OnePlus includes in the US basically a PD charger built into their charging brick, which means you could use that and charge other devices that support PD charging, like Pixel devices, Samsungs, and so on. But that's not true for Realme and for Oppo devices that are going internationally in Europe. And even OnePlus's charging brick in Europe doesn't support PD. I'm not sure where the relationship there, what the requirements are, and why the US gets PD where others don't. But the long story is, where you are and where we are in technology when it comes down to the batteries right now, it's moving forward. It's moving at an astronomical pace. Every device comes out is getting faster and faster charging. I mean, the Realme GT3 here is 80 watts. The Neo 3, the 3T is 80 watts. The Neo 3 is 150 watts, and the charger in the box is 160 watts, which is already telling you that they're giving you even more powerful charger in the box. The Honor Magic 4 Pro, 100 watts in the box. So we're getting very fast charging. I'm worried when we get to that point where we keep talking about faster charging, but the phones don't come with a charging brick, which means you need to make sure to buy the right charging brick. And then we're going to start seeing a little bit of a confusion as to how things are. So I'm hoping for better coordination between OEMs and third-party accessories to be able to allow us to have these functionalities and not necessarily have to pay through the roof to get them. Oh, man. Okay, so let's double check here. The OnePlus 8 right now. Yeah, no, definitely. I let my son use my Pixel 6 to watch Netflix on, and for recent Android 13 beta, got 11 hours and 12 minutes of screen on time before it died. That's actually crazy, man. But you're on Wi-Fi, so I'm assuming you're on Wi-Fi when you say your son's watching Netflix. This is purely Netflix. Yeah, it is on Wi-Fi. I'm impressed with that. No, absolutely. Believe it or not, your phone will always do better when it doesn't have to seek data or seek for network connectivity. This is the biggest thing that a lot of people may have not noticed is within the last couple of years of, when we were all stuck at home kind of thing, or before things kind of starting to go back into where we are now. Most of us were on Wi-Fi, and so our battery life starts kind of shooting up. We got longer screen on time. I think that's a great thing, but at the end of the day, I think you just need to make sure that you're getting the best out of it. I think for me, I feel like the Pixel 6 Pro is something I still use, so I couldn't give Omar this, and I feel like this is a little bit too much for what he needs. Going in from a flip phone to a full-fledged, legitimate smartphone, I felt like a Pixel 5a will be way more than he needs. It'll meet his content creation experience when it comes down to audio, speakers, 4K recording, 4K 60 frames recording, large display, a headphone jack, all of the things I want him to have. because again, we're going to start seeing at some point or another losing headphone jacks, right? The Pixel 5a still has a headphone jack. The Pixel 5 did not. So those are things that I value, and I want him to have that low, no latency type of experience. And I think the Pixel 6 is definitely a great device as well, because you get that balance of tensor and, of course, still getting the larger, the better camera sensors than what we got from previous generations. So the 7 and the 7 Pro are definitely going to be pushing that with the new generation, but the 6A, which should be coming out in about a month, in a couple of weeks, on July 21st, I feel like that's going to definitely be hitting out of the park. I think it's going to be definitely very nice there. DTS kicking it with us. I appreciate, first and foremost, for everybody hanging out with us, talking to us, and watching the show. Thank you very much for joining us. And we have obviously, we have 36 people watching. Thank you very much. And of course, if you'd like it, please make sure to hit that like or subscribe on the channel. And of course, if you want to catch it on the replay, there'll be an audio podcast later on. And thanks for Aditi, our Mr. Cumberbatch of the channel, giving us a heads up on that one as well. And the new Apple 35-watt dual port charger. So again, it goes back to the conversation. Is it fair that I want to say also, I understand the message that the companies are going with. I understand that the message is, look, we're trying to save the environment. And I think not everybody wants a new charger. That is true. I can tell you that my mom, at least, she has a OnePlus 9, right? We just upgraded her from the OnePlus 8 to the 9. And I know that the OnePlus 9 can charge crazy fast. And the good thing, at least in the US, the OnePlus 9 has wireless charging. I know internationally it does not. So apologize there. But that's literally how my mom 90% charges her phone. She has 65 watts, but she's putting it on the wireless charger. That's her usage. That's not the same for me. I have wireless chargers at home, but I typically don't use them as much. I use them literally more. I was about to hold something up that I'm not supposed to. Okay, slow down, TK. Slow down. Watch what you're grabbing from the table. No, okay. I'll leave that. I'll leave that there. Let's just say I charge other devices with my wireless chargers, and I do typically I'll put my phone on there. But realistically, I value the fact that I can charge this in about 35 minutes, 0 to 100% in about 35, 36 minutes. And if I have some charge on it, I can be done in 10 and 20 minutes. I don't need to wait the whole 45 minutes to an hour and 10 minutes. But I don't leave my phone on the charger. And I typically only do it when I know my phone is around down like 10 to 15%. Same thing with my Find X5 Pro. My Samsung, no, I have to plug it in almost every morning because I'm down to about 36 to 40% at the end of the day. And I think for me, I'm not comfortable trying to push my limit for 40% and to try to go with a second day on it. I know I can probably get to noonish or so without any problem. But this is where we start kind of seeing the difference in experience. I'm using on the S22 Ultra, I'm using my charger, believe it or not, from the S20 Ultra. Not from the S21, because the S21 did not support 45-watt charging. I'm using a 2-year-old charger that I bought from a phone, and now the S22 Ultra doesn't charge as fast as the S20 Ultra did because as you know, the 45-watt is not truly 45. It fluctuates, and there's a lot more management. Samsung is putting in a lot more control. So long story short, what we're trying to look into it is, yes, faster charging is great. Faster charging is needed. Safer faster charging is also better. But I feel like we also need functions like HS power control or power separation on Red Magic. Those are features that I feel like companies can not only benefit from because it becomes a feature they're able to talk about, but it's also a feature that they're able to help people have better battery life. Now, Oppo and OnePlus do have some functionalities added in there. Their charging technology, if you set it up directly within the settings, that it does not charge your phone to 100% and let the phone sit there. It trickle charges. I mean, it slows down the charging technology on the phone to a super slow connection and timing it perfectly so that when you pick up your phone at your morning alarm at 6 or 7 a.m. in the morning, the phone is waiting for you and it just turned 100%. So that when you unplug it and you're able to use it, your battery is not sitting there topped off at 100%. It's the same thing with most technologies on there. Don't leave your phones on your charger. This is not the type of phones that you would do this anymore to. We used to do them back in the old days, and right now, literally, that is the worst thing you could do, especially for battery health. But we want these features. I want more companies to incorporate them, not just gaming companies. I mean, Sony is not necessarily known for gaming, but like seriously, some of the best gaming experiences I've had were on a Sony because Sony really does very well. And of course, Red Magic does it. I think if I'm not mistaken, ROG from Asus do that as well. I haven't had a chance to play with the ROG Phone 5 yet, but definitely things like that will definitely be very functional. And of course, we just jumped 6,000 messages. I do apologize there. Uh, Eljosa, hey, Eljosa's in there with us. Hope you're doing well. Anyone here following folding folding tests? He's a polished streamer that had people many fold as he and in turns test durability into hitting 200 folds with no issues. I think that's actually not a bad deal. I think testing it and seeing what actually are the limits of a folding device. Different devices obviously will have different experiences, but I'll have to see if I can check him out at some point. Yeah. Oh, okay. TK. I can't. I almost did. It's if I didn't have an agreement, if I didn't sign something in purpose, but saying obviously a certain specific time, I. Oh, okay. Back to the show. See, typically with me, when I'm watching like Juan on his show on Mondays, I'm always like looking in the background for kind of things. For me, it's the total opposite. Typically, I have my stuff sitting in front of me, and I have to kind of keep driving things. There's literally one thing on this table that and I'm thinking like in my mind, why did I put it on the table in front of me? Well, it's because I'm working with it. I'm using it. I'm testing it. I need to be able to show you guys what it is, but I can't say what it is yet. No. And if I do, because it'll be one of those weird. Yeah. No, okay. I'm still running. Um, Oh my god, 276,000 folds and the phone still looks okay. I'm interested in the صباحو. Hamid, أهلًا وسهلًا حبيبي, أهلًا. Oh man, folds always, always. Yes, for sure. 276 folds. Yes. Okay. Let me double check here. I think apparently I want to see a native custom. Okay, so here, I want to be able to see a native custom wattage feature where you can choose how many wattage we want at a certain time. The concern with that is without custom ROMs or without at least a custom kernel and a governor on it, something like that that allows you to be able to control this, we typically won't be able to see it. Like a custom ROM should be able to allow you to basically see how much charging you're able to push through. But you're right, most companies don't allow. Oh, actually, take that back. The companies put it there's it's a two prong connection, right? It has to have there's some technology available in the charging brick as well as a charging the charging processor that goes right before the battery that allows us basically so how much to give it, how much charging speed that needs to be given. That's where we have that curve. It's almost like a bell curve. You start slow and then you shoot straight up on the speed and you go for a little bit and then you just shoot down. The last 15 to 25% are typically much slower than the 20 or the 5 to 10% all the way up to about 80%. That's literally where you're scream speeding through charging. The concern that we have in here is the different technologies that we're looking at. Some companies split the batteries, and that's how they do the faster charging. They're doing 35 watts charging on two batteries that are half and half, which total up to basically about 70, or not 35, but I meant to say like 31 watts, getting at the 62 or the 65 watt capacity for performance. But that there's many things in there. So the phone can definitely help, but allowing the phone to reduce the charging speed doesn't necessarily help the functionality because the companies are touting faster charging at cooler speed and cooler temperatures. I think what we need is more features to allow us to time when those features are needed and you can use them. I'll say that the Honor Magic 4 Pro doesn't charge 100 watt on the wireless charger unless you go into the settings tab and turn on high speed wireless charging. So by default, when you first put this on the charger that the Honor puts out, there's a notification in the notification panel: do you want to turn on turbocharging? And that allows it to go to 100 watts. And that's when you start getting that benefit from the technology in there. So there are options on the market. Yes, it's absolutely in there. And I think some companies are using it, but I feel like adding HS power control or adding pass-through functionality, meaning using a cord and using a power cable to be able to charge your phone, well, to use your phone without necessarily draining the battery, is way more functional for me. In two sides. A, we have less power draw and less load on the battery, which typically will transfer into what B is, essentially less heat generated on the phone. So where the 8 Gen 1 and the 888 and the 8 Plus Gen 1, I'm sure will be in the same boat, definitely more power hungry, but also temperature generating processors, you're definitely going to get better performance out of it when you don't have the battery contributing to that story, if that makes sense. But I'm with you there. We really need to do better in better battery tech. Of course, it's been stagnant for a while. We're now at the point where software augmentation is needed to keep phones basically and batteries like the Note 7 ing kind of back in the old days itself. And yeah, I mean the Note 7 has been one of those things that I've never understood the well, I mean, I do understand what happened. Obviously, we know what happened. The battery tech, the battery chemistry that was in there was contaminated, and there was issues in different devices. I can tell you personally that my device, or the one I have, the Note 7, it definitely didn't have any problems, but it was crippled and turned off by Verizon, so we couldn't even use the phone. But after some time, the battery swelled up so much that it actually damaged the phone. Like it broke the seal between the back and the front, and it started damaging hardware on there, making the phone not only unusable but basically now just practically like just a paperweight. It is something that we need to be careful with. Batteries are at their core the main running source of power that we have on everything. I mean, my car has a battery, and this is like I can't believe I'm saying that in that aspect. But at the end of the day, we need better battery tech alongside better battery charging tech to be able to allow us not to rely on time. We are in 2022. Devices can charge from 0 to 100% in less than 30 minutes in some cases. Juan has the IQ6, no, IQ9 Pro. Again, 150 watt chargers. The Neo 3, the Neo GT, the GT Neo 3, 4500 milliampere battery. 150 watts. I saw a 240 watt charging technology phone on them at MWC charging, and that is ludicrously crazy fast. But again, heat comes out with it. So we need to be aware of those things. I'm with you. And the Z Fold 3 has been rated to 200,000 maximum fold. That's going to be interesting there. We'll have to see how that kind of goes. Oh my God, I just jumped like 6,000 comments. Okay, so pixels. Sony and LG used to have a very advanced adaptive charging called I'm saying, okay, the Qnovo, which prevents the degradation of battery. Sony still has that. Obviously, LG doesn't, but Sony still does have that. I think, if I'm not mistaken, still has that technology built in for the extension of the battery life. The biggest thing that we noticed, though, is you notice that they capped it at 30 watts. They didn't try to go beyond that level of speed charging. And I think it's basically 50% in about 30 minutes, which is what they're claiming, from 0 to 50%. And that's actually pretty decent to get you get you back in the run of it. The Xperia 1 series typically has wireless charging. The 5 doesn't, and the 10 doesn't. But it's some of those things that we appreciate having is the ability of having charging speed. But battery health is something that we need to be aware of. As time goes on, when your phone reaches 2, maybe 3 years or so, you're not charging that phone. And if you're using, obviously, as your main phone, you are no longer charging that phone to 100% capacity. You're more than likely hitting 80 to 90% or 90% or so on the percentage, depending on the battery cell and the company that you're using it from. And at the end of the day, what is it that we're going to be able to do? We can't replace batteries the way we used to. No phone now is sold with an open, like in the general overall market. I'm not talking about custom or literally, for the lack of a better term, niche-based devices are not sold with removable backs. So replaceable batteries are not a thing. And at the end of the day, you have to basically either be comfortable in opening the back of your phone, because the OEM parts are available. iFixit will have a whole bunch of different options available for us to be able to do that, as well as walkthroughs and processes and the kits that you need to buy. But it's something that most people will not be comfortable in. I mean, they may see the video, but how many people do you know? I mean, outside of yourselves, techies, everybody in the chat, in the video, I'm sure you guys are way more, by the definition that you're watching or you're even being part of the conversation on this channel, you are already ahead of a lot of people when it comes down to technology. And again, I don't think everybody's going to be jumping in and saying, yeah, I want to go to iFixit and I want to be able to replace the battery on my Pixel or something to that effect. But something to keep in mind is battery aging is not always the same. I've had devices that I've used consistently, daily, and of course, like an example would be this. It was an Honor 8, and it was an Honor Note 8, not just the Honor 8. An Honor Note 8, it was a device originally meant specifically for the Chinese market, but I was, as you know, for many years, I've covered Honor devices. And hopefully next week, by the way, I know I've been saying this for a couple of weeks, I am going to be putting out the video on the Honor Magic 4 Pro. I got their cool. Oh my God, they're really, really nice. Hold on, let me show you. You guys can see it. So you can redo it here. The new Honor watch that works really, really nice. So I've been using that with the Magic 4 Pro and the buds, the Honor buds. Pro. These are so good. Very, very nice. And of course, offer us very good capabilities and just a much, I would say, a full ecosystem and a full, return for Honor. I don't want that, not that I want to throw in, but it's something that I'm excited to be able to share. So that's going to be for next week's main focus for me. Um, but let me jump back here real quick. Okay, so yeah, so for that, I think Sony has definitely been putting out one of the best options. Um, Oh, okay. So Greg saying my daughter's iPhone, he's still his daughter's using the iPhone C. Did that battery swell up pretty bad? It's crazy though, right? Like you're using the phone, it's not sitting there. There should be no reason for it to do that. But yeah, the Honor Note 8, after I want to say maybe a year and a half of usage, I started to notice that the display kind of like looks a little bit tight, like the case wasn't going all the way in. And I kind of touched it, like, and then started, oh no, the swelling was starting to happen. And then sure enough, believe it or not, before I knew it, I came in one morning back into the office and the whole thing kind of popped up, like the phone split and at the seams, typically where the connections are. I know that on an Honor 7X, I know my mother-in-law's phone did the exact same thing, and it was mostly because she's like, my case doesn't fit the phone anymore, and she never opened it up to look, and it was really her phone kind of swelling up. So we switched her over to a Pixel. But yeah, these are things, and Samsung's also been known for that. The Note 7 specifically, that battery. And I maybe should not have this in my office. Here, let me see. It's a balloon. It's a tiny battery, but it's a balloon. It's literally a balloon sitting in there, and it snapped the phone up. And so now the phone is, I can't find batteries that work for it, and the damage on the phone has been done. But to me, it's like weird. Like, right, why would you do that? Like, why would you not take care of the technology that you're using? And not everybody does it, but yeah, if it happens, that's a massive upgrade, a massive fix that you need to do, because typically that, I don't think that's covered under the manufacturer's warranty unless it happens right out, like within the first year or so. Um, Michael Peppertex jumping in with dual battery technologies. How do they handle things so that one doesn't degrade more quickly than the other? I think it's purely based on the cycles, right? There's no way for them to help the degradation. The degradation, I think, is factored into their model. So what they do essentially is they'll say, okay, we know our batteries after a certain amount of testing. Typically they'll do the testing for a certain amount of time by running certain cycles, and they kind of like model it to the future. I don't think they typically do the testing across the border, but I think overall, the way they do that is based on the capacity, based on the charging wattage that they're predicting it to be charged at, meaning they test it based on the charger that's included in the box. They're able to model it and know exactly when the degradation will hit the most. I've seen Honor, well, should I take it back? I've seen Huawei as the only company that's ever made specific claims as to saying the battery does not degrade after a certain number. And this was something also that was a very big shock for me as a Tesla owner, that Tesla actually factors in about a 3 to 5% degradation in battery after the first year. Now, they say that you don't lose 10% of the battery capacity till after you hit 200,000 miles. Well, that's a very big claim, right? You're supposed to be able to stay there, but again, it's based on modeling. They model those capacities, they model the performance, and they basically assume a certain type of a scenario that you're using. Sometimes they may use the lowest, but typically with most smartphones, they base it on the model that or the charging brick that comes with it, because they assume you're using it. So that's something to keep that in mind. There's no mechanical way for them to manage it. The only thing they can do is maybe have some algorithm to make sure that not one side is charged more than the other, that the capacity is, I guess, dispersed evenly between the two cells. But it's always done as based on a model basing. They do a certain number of cycles, they test it out to a certain amount, and then from there they see what the degradation is, and then they contrapolate the time and the amount of degradation, and then they give you a model by when do they think they'll lose a certain percentage. Okay, here I'm almost certain that Samsung will try to use the stream test for their marketing. At least they're going to be. Yeah, no, there's going to be a lot of things. I think Samsung can. It depends. It depends on the conversation and how things are. And believe it or not, RogerBot just went live. So if you guys, obviously after the show, if I was on Twitch, I mean, I am on Twitch, but I don't know if I'm able to actually do a raid there. But long story short, it's definitely very, very, very nice if you guys follow Roger, Life of Tech. Pixel made. Yeah, yep, still open. Someone just Oh my God. Yeah, no, it's always. Is it possible to download the Oxygen interface on the version? Um, no. Okay, so no. So they used to. OnePlus used to have two versions of their software. There used to be a Hydrogen OS and there was Oxygen OS. Hydrogen OS was OnePlus UI Oxygen OS, but made for the Chinese market, minus the Google Play services and certain functionalities added directly for that. But Hydrogen OS, as of I think about a year, maybe 2 years ago, has been put out as far as the default installation for those devices. And it actually now, the if you buy a OnePlus 10 Pro directly from China, it actually runs Color OS. So, for the lack of a better term, if you're trying to do so, what Hamid is asking is, can I install Oxygen OS on a Chinese version? Yes, you can definitely buy a Chinese version of OnePlus 10 Pro and then flash a US or the global ROM directly onto it from the download sites directly from OnePlus. Now that we've had a few updates push out where OnePlus provides full system images that you're able to bring over, yes, it's totally installable, but you'd have to manually do it. It's not automatically. The system or the built-in system will not allow you to do so, and you have to manually do it in the recovery. So you have to be comfortable with fastboot, and you'd be able to custom and basically flash that in there, and you should be able to do it. There's tons of videos that show you how to do it. Should not be an issue. So TK, are you excited for the Nothing phone, the Nothing Phone 1? What kind of innovation do you think that they're going to be bringing to the table? So for what we know right now with the Nothing phone, I think for me the biggest thing is it has a lot of hype going on with it, right? I tried the Nothing launcher, not exactly very impressed with it, but again, this is a launcher meant for a phone that we're using on another phone, and typically that's not going to be the best experience, anyways, right? It's like actually, there's no better way of saying it. It's like running Oxygen OS on a phone that doesn't have Oxygen OS. But the long story short, I'm excited to see what they're able to bring in. I'm really I really am. I'm in that position right now where I want to be a little bit more conservative in my excitement because we've seen this happen before. Okay, this is not the first time. Carl Pei is way capable of providing, for the lack of a better term, the excitement and the providing that whole anticipation and the feeling there. And obviously, a lot of big companies are trusting in what he's saying, and they're putting in money behind him. We have big companies, big names, and people putting money there. And I think it's based on that vision of what they're able to provide. Are they going to be able to revolutionize and basically do what they're saying, essentially unify the ecosystem together and provide a better solution for other companies? I feel like that's going to be one of their biggest things. And trying to get other players to play with them or basically play nice with them is going to be the concern. As far as hardware, what they're going to be bringing, I don't think they're going to be bringing in a very like innovative, like for the lack of a better term, I don't think they're going to be bringing a device to the market that's going to basically be like, oh my God, I need to drop everything else and go to it. I think it's going to be a very compelling device. It's going to have its own unique pros and it will have its own cons. Gen 1 will always have a con. And not to say that people are not going to stick to that, but you have to keep that in mind when you're setting that expectation. OnePlus was built out of a very specific, very unique experience, and I can trace it exactly how it was able to make the presence that it did. OnePlus owes a massive part of what Cyanogen did for them at the beginning. OnePlus could not be where they are today if Cyanogen was not their first OS. Their partnership with Cyanogen and the place where Cyanogen was at the time of when OnePlus came on was the big factor. Now, once you got the name to come out, once you got people to talk about them, all the news outlets and everybody else to talk about them, then that's where Carl Pei and Pete Lau started to jump in and made the company go with the whole, invitation system. It took them a while before people started kind of, know who OnePlus is and start talk about them. Oppo was a much bigger presence across the world, but OnePlus was floating, autonomously. So what CarPlay doesn't have right now is that he's trying to jump straight into the main media. OnePlus started as not a boutique, but like an enthusiast and custom ROM installation type of a device that later on, through the word of mouth and usage and partnerships, was able to get to where they are today. And that's a massive success. But again, stars aligning in that specific order and presence of a massive custom ROM community at the time, that's where definitely they started. I'm not saying it doesn't exist anymore, but we're not there anymore. Cyanogen is no more. Lineage has partnered with some devices, but we've seen that. Having Lineage on the label doesn't make a success. You need to be able to make it and do yourself. And there's also a lot more players on the market now. So to say what nothing is going to provide us, I feel like it's going to be a great conversation starter. I think the nothing second generation, maybe third generation, will be able to start seeing some more success. The first year, kind of like with the nothing buds, the ear ones, they're great, but they're not the best. They're not going to be the device that basically outshines everybody. And I don't think nothing wants to do that. They want to do well. They want to do great. They want to meet their expectations, provide good feedback for their investors, and get interest from people. So that's going to be the biggest thing. And getting people to use the device is going to be the biggest factor, but it's going to come down to software and support. So let's see how that comes out. I mean, July is around the corner. We already know roughly when things are going to be announced, and it looks like July is going to be a crazy month anyway. So we'll have to see how that goes. Sorry, I don't want to kind of linger too much on that one, but I'm with you on there. You should be able to use XDA to find the correct firmware for your model. Absolutely, yeah. You just find the model, find the firmware, and then manually flash it over. You'll be fine. Okay, you can yeah, MSN, uh, elbow cough, OnePlus. Yeah, I'm with you, Hamid. I always. I don't think. Okay, I don't think many things can be improved in a way of the feeling. Feeling it's a news feature for someone like for the nothing one. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a big uh, Sony good vibes. Absolutely. Um, there's a big hype factor going in here, and I always appreciate what Carl can do. He knows how to work the excitement and the hype factor. Uh, but I seriously, unless he's reinventing the form factor of a smartphone, it's coming in with the same, for the lack of a better term, glowing rectangle. I gotta be really careful what I grab. It'll be a glowing rectangle of some sort. If it has a keyboard, it'll basically be an homage to BlackBerry, and people will appreciate it for what it is. But then they're going to realize they have less screen real estate, and people will kind of have to factor: do we want to go back to a keyboard? There's a whole bunch of things that will factor into what you're able to do with there. We have a lot more selection and more options on the market today than when we had when OnePlus came out. And OnePlus did this years ago. Again, at the prime of custom RAW, I mean, raw modding and so on. And they fed into that ecosystem. They built it for that market, and it was not built for everybody else. Cyanogen on a phone was hoping to try to make Cyanogen big, but even OnePlus couldn't stick around with Cyanogen that long. By the OnePlus 2, the Cyanogen was an option. You could do, it was launched with Cyanogen, and then the OnePlus 2 kind of got Oxygen OS later on as a separate option. And it was basically either you stay on Oxygen or you can go with Cyanogen. And by the OnePlus 3, it was out. Right? I mean, that's how things were. But Cyanogen is what kicked them off. Their support base, and being that they were the first device that Cyanogen became the default operating system for, is what got people talking about them. And then as time went on, they became more functional. And of course, like I said, Carl Pei and Pete Lau did a great job, but they're not together as much as a combo anymore. Now we have Pete Lau over on Oppo, so Carl Pei is having a lot more. I'm hoping he's able to deliver. Let's just say that. That's really why I'm kind of grounding my expectations a little bit. How is the OnePlus 10R, the OnePlus the Ace? Yusuf is asking. The 10R never made it to the US, so we don't have access to that one in the US. But I do know that essentially it's a. I think the 10R is supposed to basically be more of an Indian release. You guys maybe can correct me in the comments on that one. Yes, please. Yeah, great. Absolutely nothing. I'll say this: if you are not comfortable changing things on your device, if you're not comfortable, going a little bit beyond what you normally are able to, you don't want to get out of the box or what they provide you as a default setting, I definitely would recommend you not doing it. There's many walkthroughs to do so. I won't deny the fact that it does involve a certain number of risks. Sometimes it could basically potentially even brick your phone. But most bricks can actually, most times you can actually recover from them. But long story short is research, read, and reread and reread. So if you're going through and this is, I've said this in the past, but my recommendation is this: if you go on XDA or any website that has a forum and you're trying to follow a walkthrough, my recommendation is this: first, read the entire pinned thread. The first thread typically that has all the instructions. Read it once, read it twice, read it a third time. The reason why you read it 3 times is you're always going to miss something. At some point or another, some of it's going to look boring to you and you're going to skip a section. And it may be an important part, but you need to read it. By the time you read it the third time, you should have a good understanding of what you need. And if you should also have a good understanding of what your questions are. Then search the forum for those questions that you have. Follow through and see what other people are dealing with, and if they have seen those issues and what are the concerns. Typically, what I like to do is I like to search for the word issue, or the search for the word problem. Once you do that and you understand what's going on, then you have a good understanding and a good gauge of what you should be able to expect out of this custom ROM. And if it fits what you need, and you're okay with some of the concerns and understanding that some of them may be going away, then download the files and then do them step by step. Clear your data, back up your data off your phone, of course, then clear it off the phone, and then follow the step by step process. It shouldn't be an issue, but you need to be comfortable with it first and foremost. And please, please, please ask questions. If you're not sure about something, the forum is there for that. And if people point you back to a question when you ask your question, like, okay, well, this was answered earlier, well, then just do the search and go find it. Don't take it personal. There's threads that can go literally for hundreds and hundreds of pages. You don't want to be lost. So use the search functionality. It's there for you to help. It's there to help you there. TK, do you want to switch the camera off for a second and put the embargo device? I moved it to the left. I moved it to the left. I moved it to the left. It was just, what happened is I was in the middle of a conversation and I said, and I don't use usually wireless charging unless I do. And then my hand kind of gravitated. And as I was like, wait, hold on a second. Am I like that? Okay. No. I'm steering away from this side. So for me, in the next week or so, like I said, primer before, we're talking about the Honor Magic 4 Pro, and of course, what we saw essentially, it was last week, and that was, hold on, let me just go ahead and unlock this guy. This is the device from TCL, the first, basically their attempt to try to jump into the stylus business. And this is their own, the stylus, the TCL stylus. And it's a 5G device currently on T-Mobile and on Metro by T-Mobile in the US. It's actually crazy fast speeds. That was like the surprising factor for me. Let me see. Do I have charging speed here? So hopefully you guys can see that. Let me see here. So I did a speed test on this guy. Again, this is a $300, sub $300 device on T-Mobile, 644 down, 121 up on the UC well, I guess the mid-band T-Mobile bands here in the US, at least in my area. So that's crazy fast for a $300 phone to be able to have that much speed when it comes down to that. But thank you, Aditya. I'll keep it there. No, I would. Hey, so here's the thing. If I bought it off of eBay, and if it is that, then I would have no problem showing it. I wouldn't be under any embargoes. The embargo, obviously, as you know, it would be probably more of an agreement with me and the brand to work with them. Back in the day, there's actually some rumors. I don't know if you saw that, like some articles and some rumors kind of going around talking about the OnePlus 10 Ultra, potentially that could be the thing coming up. Some people are also talking about the OnePlus 10T coming up later on, maybe with the 8 Plus Gen 1. That's possible. Typically, that's not what OnePlus does. The T series is always the same processor as the earlier one in the beginning of the year with some modifications. So I'm interested to see what they're offering, what they could potentially do for us there. So kind of, I know we're... Oh man, a whole bunch of different things. Jimmy, oh man, sorry about that. I mean, folding a phone that much is going to be really exhausting, and I'm hoping he doesn't. I mean, if he's getting the attention for it, I'm glad. But again, I always worry because testing it in that scenario of only opening and closing consistently, that's testing it in a certain specific way, but most people don't do that. There's a lot more factors when you're folding and unfolding a phone, because when you leave it for an extended amount of time, if you're in an environment where there's more humidity, there's a little bit, maybe less humidity, drier, those can factor into how the actual panels and everything ages over time. So it's a great test in certain aspects, but again, just understand that that's one certain controlled environment. And I think when we have a guarantee of a certain number, it's something that we have to pay attention to. Sorry, let's keep that in there. But it is that time of the it is that time of the show. As you know, it's about an hour and 15 minutes or so for the TKception. So if you guys are familiar with the show, you haven't been with us before, it is where you'll start seeing some hashtags in the comments. We'll be able to start talking about it a little bit more. But while that's going on, so let's jump in. We have a few new people I haven't seen before. So Open is one that's asking real quick. TK, how have you liked the OnePlus 10 Pro so far? Is it your main device? So I like the OnePlus 10 Pro quite a bit. I feel like the improvements that we've had over the last few years have been great. Not as much over the 9 Pro. It is not my main device. And I kind of mentioned it before. It's not because the phone isn't. I want to make it my main device. But the main thing that has been holding me back is there's no storage expansion. And 128 is a very limiting factor for me. I can't shoot the content the way I want to shoot it, edit as much, and produce content off my phone and be able to do all of that in 128. 256 is literally barely making it because I want to be able to go to a show and not have to worry about it. So if I'm able to get my hands on the OnePlus 10 Pro with the 256, that'll be definitely where I'm switching away from the S22 Ultra right now, and I'll be able to switch over to it 100%. But I like it a lot. The performance, the overall, the updates that we've been getting on it, the camera improvements that we've seen are definitely very, very nice, and it is absolutely a beast. Haven't had any issues with the 8 gigs of RAM. The 8 Gen 1 runs quite well. For gaming, I probably will be more of a dedicated gamer on a different device. Let's say something more like a Red Magic, not because I don't think it's a good gaming phone, but I feel like it's managed to a certain expectation of, like a constant 60 frames per second gaming on something, let's say Undead Horde, where I want to be able to play that at 120, or 90 or something higher than that. So those are some of the things I always feel like you have to kind of balance the experience between the two. But for a daily driver, I love it. It's a very nice phone. And like I said, as soon as I'm able to get my hands on the 256, I'll definitely be switching to that one. And then Hans also, by the way, welcome. I haven't seen you before on the chat, but welcome and thank you for joining us on the chat today. Hans is asking, "Hey TK, long time no talk. Definitely hope you're doing well. I'm jealous again. I have to wait 3 more months to get the Xperia 1 Mark IV. Absolutely, it's crazy. I miss it. And I'm in the same boat with you. I'm going to have to wait till September because that's how it is. And believe it or not, it's not because Sony doesn't want to release it, and I don't think it's a hardware availability. I feel like the US market it's that hard to get into, so it takes a little bit longer. I know Europe's already have it, and I can't wait to see more content being put out on it. But September will be here before we know it. We're already in June, so I'm sure it's going to be very exciting. Welcome back, man. Glad to see you doing well. It's currently at 278,000 fold. I hope he's able to make it, and hopefully everybody enjoyed that one as well. So you probably started to notice there's some hashtags in the comments. Was releasing a 256 version. I think biggest thing about it is I understand. It's like, I mean, from standing behind and looking at it from the outside, I understand why OnePlus did what they did in the way they did it. From a marketing standpoint, obviously, it's the only thing that people can talk about when the phone came out. It came out for $899 because there is no other version. They can't say basically it comes out for as much as, because that's the pricing. I'm not sure how well the numbers are going to play out, and I'm wanting probably say I'll want to wait till the end of the year and see how their sales do, especially with the 2 different variants. There may end up being a lot of people jumping from the 128 to the 256. I personally would if I am able to, and I think that's the biggest thing that we want to pay attention to. But the reality is this: if you jumped on the OnePlus 10 Pro at the time of the 128, you must have been okay with it. For me, I received this device at the Tempro. I received it as a review unit from OnePlus, so this is a little bit different for me. I would wait for the 120 for the 256 because I feel like that's the right format for me. It's the storage, the functionality, it matches it a little bit better. But I'm with you. We'll have to see how that kind of comes up. But kind of to bring things back together in the way things are with this week, Realme, I think, have a good hit with the OnePlus, the Realme, sorry, the GT3 Neo, sorry, the GT Neo 3T. I always mix it up. I always want to say the GT3T Neo, but it's the Neo 3T. Great design, great camera configuration. I think the primary sensor is the one you want to live in on the back, the 64 megapixel camera. I like the upgrades that they did over the 3 in the sense of, I mean, not necessarily said the 870 is better. I mean, it is to a certain point a different processor, a different experience. But I feel like the 64 megapixel on the main sensor, the 5,000 milliampere, is definitely a nice little upgrade from what we saw with the 3. Now, the 150 charging is definitely much better on the 3, but again, depending on the market that you're in, you may not even be able to use full potential. So the long story short, the 3T looks great, continues the Neo series or the racing series in here, and then obviously will be more things to kind of go in there. OnePlus, Adding an additional storage capability, I think, is a big factor. I think a lot of people are going to enjoy that, especially OnePlus fans that probably waited. That's literally, I think, what most people would have done is knowing at the time of launch that there is going to be a version of 256 with 12 gigs of RAM, probably waited a little bit. And I think that's definitely what they should have done. Hopefully, we'll see some specials as well. We'll see how that kind of comes out. Pixel feature drop, I think it's a big factor if you like to use it. There's a new photo, video editing and video creation content option that's built in there. The ability of using basically, or seeing your camera on the home screen or on the lock screen. The ability of actually putting and accessing or giving you the ability to access your vaccination card from the lock screen is a big win, or the big factor for people that are obviously, on a daily basis needing to show that. If you're traveling, if you go in some places, restaurants won't even let you in without it. You don't have to carry the card with you. You can definitely use the digital card. I think that's a big factor. And of course, a few other things kind of going in there. There's an improvement to the DAC on the Pixel 6 and 6 Pro. So if you have those, there's definitely been improvements there. And I think Google fixed it with the June update. So little things like that will make life a lot better for us. But if you haven't been to the channel before, if you haven't seen this before, we are about to have something called the TKception. It is one of our, it was a mistake, it was a coincidence about a year and a half ago, or when the show first started, that we actually ended up, let me just double check here real quick. Yeah, that we did it by mistake, and it ended up being part of the show. And that's how we kind of highlight some of our community members and people that are with us here on the chat. So with that being said, let me go ahead and grab the first one. And I don't remember where I saw it. I think I saw, okay, so Jimmy Fire Dragon was first, is it? Okay, I want to say Jimmy Fire Dragon did it first. Oh, here is Barry Johnson did it first. So we're going to go ahead and do this. And we're going to share the screen. Let's do this. Yeah, it's a little bit slow today for some reason. And a little bit slow. I don't know why, but I did the movement anyways. So I want to say first and foremost, obviously, thanks to everybody for hanging out with us. It's not obviously, Barry's been with us for quite some time. I really appreciate you, man, hanging out with us. Greg, thank you for kicking it with us, coming back on the show. TKception, TK the man, congrats, Omar, as always. And of course, TKception hanging out with us. Jimmy Fire Dragon, TKception, TK XDA Bay, TK Software Mod Bay. Yeah, man, I miss the days. I mean, if it was literally like the first thing I did when I got a phone. I didn't even set it up. I would unlock. I was first for what I would do: take it out of the box, boot it up, jump into the recovery. No, sorry, unlock it, go through the process. Most devices at some point didn't require it, but you needed to go into the developer option and turn on OEM unlock. Then you jump back into the recovery, unlock the phone. Obviously, resets the phone. Everything gets done. You go back, you flash a custom ROM, a custom recovery. Then you flash the custom ROM if you want it, or if you don't want the custom ROM, you flash basically a custom image to be able to root the phone, and then you start using the phone. That literally used to be the order of things I did. Most of them were on OnePlus devices, but again, that's one of those things I really loved. So I appreciate that, man. Thank you very much. The Xperia, the Honor Magic 4 was supposed to launch the product in my country very soon. Golan, you're definitely going to be very happy with it. The Magic 4 Pro is very, very nice. Like seriously, it's going back to Honor's old of what we typically loved about Honor before the whole thing kind of went on with Huawei. They're bringing back, and they're doing definitely a lot of great work there for sure. Aditya Anil, our Mr. Cumberbatch of our channel, as always, thank you very much for kicking it with us. TKception, TK Bay, TK Spirit Bomb, always Goku kicking it with us. Spirit Bomb, TK promoting proper tech discourse Bay. You have to always be aware and understand that we can talk about differences, we can talk about pros and cons between ecosystems, and that's the thing. You need to be able to talk about it. It's not always one or the other. In every system and every kind of piece of tech that comes along has positives and has issues, or not issues, but like some negatives. And you have to understand that your device has to have that right recipe that meets your needs. Because if somebody doesn't care about the fact that a phone charges 150 watts and just wants a fast charging phone, may be perfectly fine with a phone that runs a 65, a 45 watts, or 25 watts. Again, find the piece of tech that works for you the best. Of course, everybody else kicking it with us here. Oh, here it is. Chemi Torres, always. Thank you very much. Dominic, sorry. Dominic, welcome back. Dominic One kicking it with us as well. Chemi Torres, TK Gogu Team Tesla Bay, TK Android Bay. And of course, thank you very much, everybody, for hanging out with us here on this beautiful Saturday. It's going to be a warm one. Hope you stay safe. Hope you stay cool. And as always, I always appreciate everybody hanging out with us on a Saturday. If you haven't had a chance to check it out, please make sure you hit that like, and of course, subscribe to the channel. You'll be able to get more updates and more information quicker about what's going on with the Android Bay, and of course, keeping up to date with a lot of the tech that's coming up. And of course, you'll be able to participate in the chat. I love the way the show is because it's a conversation for me. There's a good part of it where I'm sharing things with you guys, but at the end of the day, the way the show has been constructed since its inception, when it used to be called a Saturday morning with tech, it's a conversation, and I think that's the best way. So with that being said, I do want to say again, stay safe, be safe. It is going to be a scorcher here in Southern California. Thank you very much, Dominic. Donald Lozino, man, hope you're doing well. All right, no, we'll have to see. But yeah, everybody, hope you guys do well. One thing I haven't said for a while: if you have any friends and family members that you haven't talked to for some time, reach out, say hi. Everybody loves hearing from people that I haven't heard from. I personally have reconnected with one of my friends from high school, which is really cool and really kick-ass because we have grown so far apart from since then, but we both have so much in common still, even at our age right now. So it's always great to do so. So with that being said, make sure if you guys are watching and you're still in the mood to watch some good stuff, RogerBot over on Twitch. So it's RogerBot with a 3 for the E is streaming right now. So make sure to hit him up. And of course, I'll see you on Monday with the SGGQA on Juan's chat. We'll hang out with there. And of course, if you haven't seen it yet, Grounded Tech, a whole bunch of other people, of course, great people. Thank you very much for joining us. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye for now.